Hey all, welcome back to SLB Basement Bourbon Bar. My name is Kurt. Today we're going to further our discussion on the best bourbons for 30 bucks. We did a video some time ago on best bourbons for 30 bucks. I'm sure Trent will put a link up somewhere. We're going to continue that with 5 more excellent bourbons that you can buy for only $30. I mean, in the world we live in now, with the escalating prices of whiskey and bourbons and rye whiskeys and scotch and everything else, it's good to know that you have a real nice grouping of bourbons that you can actually buy for 30 bucks. So we're going to move down that line with 5 more, and I think a couple of them, my choices might surprise you just a little bit, maybe just a little bit. So what I want to say first, I want to highlight first real quick, on our last video we actually took a few minutes to highlight Eagle Rare and Henry McKenna 10-year, because both of those at the time you should be able to get for around 30 bucks. I know it's extremely hard to find. Trenton, actually, you found Eagle Rare today for $31. Got lucky there. He told me about it. I was working. I couldn't get there. So by the time I got there about 1 o'clock, they were sold out. So that's that. At any rate, we highlighted those two. Today I want to show you a Weller Special Reserve. This bottle you really should be able to get for around 30 bucks. You really should. Trenton got one when?
A couple weeks ago.
And you know, the kid's good. About 30 bucks, right?
32.
32 bucks. I know this is hard to find too, so we're just bringing it out here to let you know that these can and will be available at times for decent prices. So for about 30 bucks, if you find the Weller Special Reserve anywhere, grab it and buy it, because it's an excellent bourbon. All right, that's just a special mention. Let's move on to the core of our list. The very first bourbon that I want to show you tonight is Woodford Reserve. This bourbon is going to cost you about 30 bucks for a 750 milliliter bottle, and it comes in at 90.4 proof. This Brown-Forman Kentucky Straight bourbon whiskey was first introduced in 1996. Woodford Reserve Distillers Select Bourbon consists of a mixture of pot still whiskey distilled at Woodford Reserve and column still spirits from Brown-Forman. This is a non-age statement bourbon, but it is rumored to be aged between 6 and 7 years. To be truthful, I haven't had this Woodford Reserve in the bar for that very long, for a little while. As you can tell, we've got a little bit out of the bottle, so Trent and I have been testing it, and a few other people as well. I find it to be a very light and relaxing type of a bourbon. There's no real heavy or dominant flavors in here. To me, you get just a little bit of spice on the front end, just a little bit of an alcohol burn, but nothing to be offensive. It's nothing like that at all. Just maybe a little bit of a spice, but I find it to be slightly sweet with a little bit of brown sugar and maybe a little hint of orange in there as well. So I really think that this is an excellent bourbon for somebody that may come over to your house that really doesn't drink bourbon a whole lot. That's what I find. I think this would be like a really nice introductory bourbon and an excellent choice for 30 bucks. All right, next on the list, may surprise you. David Nicholson Reserve. This bourbon will run you about 30 bucks for a 750 milliliter bottle, and it is 100 proof. David Nicholson, a St. Louis grocery store owner during the 1840s, created what became known as the 43 bourbon recipe. This wheated bourbon recipe has been passed down unaltered for generations, according to Luxco's website. This is a non-age statement bourbon. This particular bourbon was somewhat of a surprise to me, because I was out researching, looking through the stores for 4 bottles, roughly around $30, and I've had some people tell me about this particular bourbon. My brother in particular said it was pretty darn good, and I did some research on it, and for what I found, it was pretty darn good. So I bought it. Now I will tell you this, out of the 5 that I want to show you tonight, this one has probably the most dominant oak presence in the bourbon, but not offensive whatsoever. It's kind of a real nice, but you get that oak up front, then you get some vanilla, caramel, butterscotch. You get that real traditional bourbon flavor right after that oak in the front, and I find it to be somewhat creamy and a little bit viscous too. So I really thought, for the money, this particular bottle was an excellent choice. The very next bourbon that I want to show you tonight, with a lot of the comments that I've read, is as far as opinions are concerned, I've left out. Certainly didn't mean to leave it out, but we are going to include it tonight. 1792 small batch. This bourbon will also run you about $30 for a 750 milliliter bottle and comes in at 93.7 proof. 1792 small batch is Barton's flagship bourbon. This is a high rye mash bill bourbon and has a no age statement. Now I truly never intentionally left this out. It just seemed like it never made it into the rotation, but I find it to be extreme. It's a very solid bourbon. You get a little bit of that rye spice up front, probably from the high rye mash bill, of course. But then after that, you get that vanilla caramel notes. I mean, it's somewhat simplistic, but yet profound. I mean, it's just a real nice bourbon for the money. I mean, you just can't beat it. 1792 small batch. All right, I got to be honest. I'm moving on down the line. All right, I got to be honest. As we move on down the line, the last two choices, in my opinion, they're the heavy hitters of the night. Next in line, Russell's Reserve 10-year. Russell's Reserve 10-year is going to cost you about $34 for a 750 milliliter bottle, and it comes in at 90 proof. This Kentucky straight bourbon is selected from barrels that are at least 10 years old by the most experienced father-son distilling team in the world, Eddie and Jimmy Russell of Wild Turkey. Personal opinion, of course, as are all these shows. But if you could buy a 10-year bourbon that comes from Wild Turkey for $34, that's a win-win right there. Trenton knows I'm kind of preferenced to Wild Turkey. Got a lot of Wild Turkey around this place, don't we, buddy? I just find their stuff to be solid, dependable, just excellent bourbon. And this is no slouch whatsoever. Even though it's a little bit of a cheaper category, you get cinnamon in here, you get some charred oak, some brown sugar, maybe a little nutmeg. I mean, the depth of flavor in this particular bottle, in my personal opinion, it is a lot better than the ones that I've showed you so far. That doesn't mean they're bad. I'm not meaning that in any way, shape, or form. It's a 10-year bourbon. It's a 10-year bourbon. So you get some depth of flavor here. It's just really good stuff. Russell's Reserve 10-year. Can't beat it. $34. Last but not least, probably my favorite of the night. Yep, there she is. Evan Williams Single Barrel. This single barrel bourbon costs you about $30 for a 750 milliliter bottle. Comes in at 86.6 proof. Heaven Hill has chosen select barrels for this single barrel series. Each bottle is dated with the vintage date of when the bourbon was distilled, along with the year it was bottled. Additionally, each bottle bears a serial number of the barrel from which it was drawn. For a $30 bourbon, I think that's super cool. You have all the particulars right here in the back, which is really neat. It is a single barrel. I will say this up front. The only knock I can give on this particular release is that I have found, in my experience, being a single barrel bourbon, that the flavors will vary just a touch from bottle to bottle or from different barrels per se. The bottle that I had previously that was emptied was absolutely delicious. I mean, I would rank it, Trenton, up to like a $70 or $80 bourbon. I mean, it was so freaking good. I know the proof's a little low, but man, the flavors were just ridiculously good. It was so good. This one, as you can see, it's a little bit full because I just got it not that long ago. It's not quite as good, but it's still very, very nice. You get some aged oak, some caramel, some vanilla, maybe a little bit of orange there too. But I find this to be very creamy, very viscous. It's just a really, really nice bourbon, man. For $30, Evan Williams single barrel. Don't pass it up if you see it. That's all we have for you tonight. Leave your comments below of what you would put in this category. I'd love to read it. I'd love to hear what you have to say. As always, we ask you to please drink responsibly. And we'll see you next time right down here with me at the good old basement bourbon bar. See you later.